Well, hey guys, it's Matt with 42 Pros, and in this video for 120 Wednesday, we're going to talk about how to get the proper exposure for all your video and photography work by understanding the exposure triangle. So let's get started. Well, hey guys, welcome back to 42 Pros, and again we say thank you for watching all of our content. It is much appreciated, and something we're going to be doing a lot more here in the near future is asking, what do you want to see? Here on 120 Wednesday or any other type of video, whether it's gear reviews or something like that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, type us up a comment below, and we'll definitely get in the filming schedule and put that content out as soon as possible, all right? But for today, 120 Wednesday, this is where we take 120 seconds or 2 minutes of your time to hopefully teach you something new or just refresh your memory on something that you already know. And this week, we are talking about the exposure triangle and what components are used to get stuff exposed properly for our video and photography work. All right. Now, I will preface this by saying that this is a rabbit hole that we can get into and really dive deep if you want to. But for today, in 120 Wednesday, we're just going to hit the highlights. And then if you want to see some further detail, we'll definitely get into it. But be sure to type up that comment below. Let us know that you want to learn a little more, and we'll get into it in a video here in the near future. All right, so let's go ahead and get that timer up on the clock. Here we go. The three things we're going to be working with is the aperture or iris, ISO or gain, and shutter speed. And the reason why we have a couple different names is just depends on what type of camera you're using, but I'm going to stick with the DSLR mirrorless type terminology just to keep it short and sweet. So aperture is controlled by what's called an f-stop, and f-stops could be as small as 0.95 or lower, and they can go all the way up to f22 or f24. Now, the smaller the number, the bigger the opening. I know that's backwards, but just remember, aperture is backwards. All right, f1.8 is a really big opening. f16 is a really small opening. Now, the bigger the aperture should be logical to you that more light can get in. All right, if it's a smaller aperture, less light can get in. So that's one of the things that a camera lens does for you as far as aperture goes. But the other cool thing is depth of focus or depth of field. So if you have an aperture of 1.8 or 1.4, it's really big opening. That also can get a very small plane of focus when it comes to your video and photography work. So if you've ever seen those photos that are just completely washed out and the background is just super blurry, that was a combination of a couple things, but more likely it was a really, really big aperture. So that's aperture or iris, all right? ISO or gain. Now that is what I like to call, without getting too technical, artificial light. Okay, that's just the camera's sensor's sensitivity to light. As a rule of thumb, the more ISO or gain that you add into your photos and video work, the more noise or grain that you're going to add in there as well. So usually I try to keep it about 12,800 or less, sometimes 16,000 on the A7 III, but for the most part, around that 12,000 mark is where I start shutting it off and stopping with my ISO. Now, if you have a smaller sensor, like a 1-inch sensor, like a PXW-x70 or X80 or Z90 or RX10, then those really and truly have become unusable between the 18 and 21 dB area. I'm not sure about the ISO for RX10, but I would venture to say somewhere around 6400 for that sensor would be about its max. All right, so keep that in mind. If you can keep it less noisy in camera out in the field, we can do some stuff to it here on the computer, clean it up and brighten it up. So don't overdo it in the camera is the tip, okay? Now the last thing is shutter speed, and simply put, that is how fast the doors to the sensor move, okay? So if you have a shutter speed that is 1/4000th, that is 1/4000th of a second. That is extremely quick, and that's something that photographers can use on some really, really fast glass in some bright situations. Now, I wouldn't highly recommend doing that type of shutter speed work in video because you'd have to have a really, really bright situation in the first place. But the motion blur would be horrendous. There you go. That's the three things that we're going to be talking about: exposure with the aperture, ISO, and the shutter speed. And how they relate is simply, if you adjust one, you're going to have to adjust the other. Okay, so if you're going from say f2.8 on an aperture and you want to go down to 1.8, so you're making the aperture bigger. All right, so that means on the other two things you need to decrease the light, either increase your shutter speed or decrease your ISO. All right, and that's how they are related. All right, so if you want to learn more about this, definitely let us know in the comments below. But since that's all we have for 120 Wednesday, don't forget, get the gear that's right for you, because only you can do your projects. And since we usually only have one chance to get it right, why not do it right and do it once? Until next time, guys, we'll see you in the next video.